Alright, so in this video we are going to make bulk substrate for use in mono tubs or unmodified tubs. It's going to use Coco Coir, gypsum, which in this case I'm using Plaster of Paris, it's all just calcium sulfate, and fine vermiculite. If you can't get fine vermiculite, that is okay. The coarse and the larger pieces will work just fine, but in my experience I've found that the smaller holds more water and results in better colonizations and higher yields. So this bulk substrate is just super easy to make. The hardest part and the most important part is to bring it to filled capacity. And what filled capacity is where it is fully hydrated and it will not hold any more water than it's currently holding. It's not pooling any water at the bottom, but if you added any more, it would pool. The best way to bring it to filled capacity is to either add the exact right amount of water or to add an excess and drain it off. One way to see if it's at filled capacity is to take a handful of it, and when you're holding it, it's not going to be dripping any water if you're just lightly holding onto it. But if you gently squeeze it, then it'll have a drip of water, and then if you squeeze it more tightly, it'll have a stream of water. So that's filled capacity. I have a ratio of all the ingredients, and what I like to do is use 500 grams of Coco Coir. Each one of these bricks is 250 grams, so two of them together, 500 grams. I use 2-liter jars, I use two 1-liter jars full of vermiculite to measure it out. I fill it to the brim, and then I use about 1 cup of gypsum. And all you do is add them together in a bucket and add 5 liters of water. At least for my Coco Coir and my vermiculite. If you're using a different brand of Coco Coir, it may hold more or less water, and if you're using different sizes and different brands of vermiculite, that'll also use different water. But a good ballpark range for 500 grams of Coco Coir and 2 liters volume of vermiculite and a cup of gypsum is about 5 liters of water. It's very simple to make. All you have to do is add the Coco Coir, the vermiculite, and then I like to add the powder Plaster of Paris to the boiling water, just because it suspends more easily and I feel like it gets more distributed, but probably doesn't matter because this is going to be mixed a bunch of times, both when you're prepping it here as well as when you're mixing in the bulk, the spawn. So now I have my Plaster of Paris and 5 liters of boiling water and my Coco Coir vermiculite mix. All I'm going to do now is add it together. You'll want to be careful at this step because pouring boiling water can obviously be dangerous. Looks like a little bit of the calcium sulfate Plaster of Paris was left at the bottom, but not very much. And the ratios really don't matter a whole ton. So once you've mixed them together, put the lid on, seal it up, and you'll want to insulate it somewhere, but you're fine leaving it as is. I like to insulate it just so it stays hotter longer. I believe it allows it to pasteurize slightly better. I've talked to a lot of people that don't even bother with pasteurizing their Coco Coir, and they say it does just fine, but I really wouldn't recommend that, and proper pasteurization is really the way to go. Let that sit for about an hour and then shake it up. Don't shake it up immediately, because if you do, the hot water, the steam will mix with the air inside and will cause pressure and pop off the lid. So let that sit for an hour, then shake it up, mix it together, then allow it to sit for 24 hours. I found that when you soak the Coco Coir for less than 24 hours, it still continues to hydrate, and what you think is filled capacity will really not be filled capacity. You'll come back to it a day later and it'll be slightly drier than it was the day before. Simply, not from evaporation or anything, but just simply because it hasn't fully absorbed all the water. And yeah, that's all there is to it. Mix it up. One thing a lot of people ask is the ratios of the Coco Coir to the vermiculite to the gypsum, and it honestly doesn't matter. A lot of people leave out the gypsum, a lot of people use just Coco Coir, and other people use plain vermiculite. I've heard that plain vermiculite, while lower yielding, produces larger mushrooms because it provides more water and it's a bit more contamination resistant. But it also has the issue where it tends to pool water more easily. So, you know, if you can't find vermiculite or you can't find Coco Coir, but you can find one of them, you're good to go. Just bring it to filled capacity, pasteurize it, let it cool down, add your spawn in, and then place it in the bulk tub, the mono tub, whatever. And you should be good to go. Really easy, and it's pretty contamination resistant. If you get really creative with your substrates by using like aged horse manure and straw and all that, not only is the yield often not worth that extra effort, but since it does have more nitrogen and more minerals and everything else in it, it tends to contaminate more easily. If you just want higher yields and want a more nutritious overall substrate, you can just add more spawn, which the grain provides a lot more nutrients, a lot more minerals and protein, and that's the way to go. So this mixture, I believe, produces about 12 pounds of substrate. I'll provide ratios and other information down in the description below this video. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me, and I will try to make more videos on them or answer them more directly. Alright, thank you.